Hi everyone, it's been a little while since I've done a driving instructor video, and what we're going to try and look at today is the use of gears. Let's crack on. How long do you think it's going to be until manual cars don't exist anymore? Well, we have got in 2030 the promise by all the manufacturers to be going to electric and hybrid vehicles, but I did see something in the press a couple of weeks back, and it was about when the last manual test is probably going to happen, and he reckoned 2042. So we've got another 20 years before the last manual test. I think that's probably about right. If you think about if all the cars by 2030 are all going to be, all the new cars produced are going to be hybrid or electric vehicles, there's still going to be a massive number of manual vehicles still left on the road. Not everyone drives a brand new vehicle, and there's loads of cars on the road that even today are more than 10 years old and they're perfectly fine. It seems ridiculous to be just discarding them. So I think that probably sounds about right. There is going to be a push towards automatics. We even see it now with driving school. We're getting a lot more people inquiring about automatic lessons than we ever did, and that's getting more and more and more as time's going on. So that swap to automatic vehicles is happening, but we've still got 20 years worth of using gears, and I find people are pretty poor at them. So that's what we're going to be looking at in today's video. Now, as normal, I've got no idea of where I'm going to go. I've got little bits of an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, but as normal, I'm going to absolutely wing it. So, gear changing. I'm not going to go into what we do with the feet. I'm going to talk about literally when we should be changing gear and why, and what decisions we can be bringing in from the outside of the car into the car to try and help us do these things at the correct time. First thing I want to talk about is listening. Listening is a massive important skill when it comes to changing gear. It tells you as now we need a higher gear, and it also tells us as we're slowing when we need a lower gear. So we're always trying to keep our engine happy. We're trying to think of your engine as your mate. Yeah, you've got to keep it nice and comfortable at that nice level. Listening as we're coming in here, I can tell when to declutch and when it needs another gear. And just have a little look on what I do before a change. I do my steering, and that's going to play an important part of what we're doing today also. Again, when are we going to get the gear? I could have got it there, but I'm leaving it until now. And this is the first main thing that I'd like to go with, that people prioritise their gear over their steering. You may have heard the term gearing and steering, which is where people are moving the hand with one hand on the wheel, and they're also changing gear at the correct time. That's not the best. There is a control issue. There's a little bit of a higher risk if you go about doing that. So we should always be trying to make sure our gears are done at good times in relation to when we steer. And this is going to form the big part of this video that I'm doing today. Students tend to prioritise their gears just off the sound. Mentioned it before, and they get sort of worried, and people, oh, I need to change gear. No, you don't. If you can't get your steering wheel set and still, don't change. Get it now when it's nice and still. Great. We should be getting these high gears when we don't need the lower ones or a higher engine rev or speed for control. We should be trying to save fuel, especially with the price of fuel how it is at the minute, and I can't see it coming down anytime soon. Let me just deal with this bridge. I'm gearing down before I get here, so I've got options now. Okay, So again, that was done at the time when my steering wheel was still. I'm just going to do a right turn here. Again, is there a need for a lower gear? No, there isn't. Now, an interesting little one there, just quickly talk about, just because it just happened, was I declutched in second and then I went again in the same gear. Totally fine, no issue. If you have to go below idle speed in second gear, there's no problem about declutching, slowing it down more and then going again in the same gear. You don't have to change down into first all the time. You may need to in certain situations, but first and second gear are the only gears that you can declutch and then go again. If you declutch in third, fourth, fifth or sixth, generally you'll need that lower gear. So just an extra little point there. Steering set, yes, totally fine. Going up to the next gear, save a little bit of fuel. Have a little think about what I do coming in towards this mini roundabout. I'm just going to go ahead. You have to do your assessment coming in on what it's going to be like. We don't want you changing gear when you make a decision. I've already made a decision on what it's going to be like, so I've chose second, and that's slow enough for me to just trundle around this mini roundabout. So it comes down to planning. You may have heard me mention stages of approach before. You need to understand what the scenario and situation is going to be like, so you're able to slow down and choose the appropriate gear beforehand. So steering wheel was straight, road was clear, I was able to get the gear again, and same thing now. And that's the next thing I just would like to push on to, is try not to change gear when risk in front of you is increasing. What students tend to do, not just students, I'm just talking about novice drivers and provisional license holders, I'm talking about a lot of people, is they just go for the gear in a routine manner, in a routine way, at a routine time, and it shouldn't be like that. And what then happens is they're choosing gears when they need to be prioritising other things, whether it be steering to get around a bend or observations at a junction. I know there's a little bit of a swap over regarding changing gear and observing, but at that crucial time where you're making your decision on what the junction's like and whether to go or not, you shouldn't be changing. So it's about planning, and there's certain things that you can do as you're coming into junctions and into situations to aid that. And I'm just going to try and give us a little idea. Just thinking of there's a roundabout a little bit further up, and it's got a little bit of steering to do on the approach. And what we've got to try and aim to do is fix our slowing down and our gearing down at a point where we can keep our hands still. So as you can see, we've got the left bend now. There's the sign for the roundabout, and there's a little straight bit prior to the roundabout. So what I'm doing, I'm making my assessment on what I need to do here, and I'm fixing it, and my hands are back on the wheel to deal with the steering. Okay, cyclists are a problem, and it's not because of these guys, it's because of the motorists following. Whenever you see cyclists like that, the main problem is vehicles from the opposite direction overtaking them when they shouldn't do. So going back to what I was saying about gears, I'm doing a right turn at the roundabout. It's where the blue car's coming from, and again, straight bit on the approach, picking my gear, so hands back on the wheel before I can do my steering, and look, I'm all set. I'm ready to do whatever I need to do. I had options, and that's the key. We don't want to be selecting and choosing gears at that point when we need to go, because that will also delay you. So planning, I'm totally okay to go around the parked ones. Not going to change gear yet. Happy with everything. Change gear now. I've already checked, I'm coming back in. So do you feel triggered to actually go off and get the gear change just because the engine note is high? Maybe. People are scared of that engine note, and it's as if they've got to get the gear, got to get the gear, got to get the gear. No, you haven't. This car's running at about 1600 revs at the minute. You could get another gear. However, it doesn't matter that it's running at that level if you need to prioritise other things. Wait till it's totally clear, then get it. God, who remembers this stretch of road? That was a bit of a debacle, that video, wasn't it? Anyway, out we go. Now, lower gears do help with acceleration. So by all means, if you need to accelerate 40 limit, I'm dropping it into a lower gear before I get there, checking, accelerating. There's no problem about using extra engine revs, but just have a little look on what to do with this corner. I'm assessing the corner and I'm slowing before. I'm braking quite firmly and I'm choosing the gear, so I'm all sorted and balanced, and that's the key. I'm balanced before I go around that corner. So you should always be ready to fix stuff on the way up to the corner, so you're ready to drive around. It's quite important. I'm going to mention that a little bit more. I'm just going to turn left here. Again, slowing, straight part, pick my gear off what I'm seeing, and I've got options. No problems. And I'm going to get changed on the way out. Well, I've got a 40 limit, so I delayed that gear and I used the gear a little bit longer on the way out. Use it for whatever you need to. If you need that acceleration, if you need that flexibility, sound, no problem about the higher engine revs, and that's probably key to a lot of people, but we should be trying to get it into the highest gear we can. When the engine revs are low, that's fuel saving, but we sometimes need a few engine revs for a little bit of control. Going back to the corners, changing gear on the corner as you're coming in can unbalance the car. So again, we just want to make sure everything's done in a nice straight line on the approach. I am just going to gear down for the corner, a little bit more control, a little bit higher engine rev, so I've got an ability to slow if needed. Cyclists aren't an issue, no one's going to be overtaking them. And again, I'm choosing the gear off what I see before I get here. No problems. I'm going to get a gear now on the bend. Totally fine. That's not gearing and steering. To be able to do that, it's important that you look really far. If you look really far around the corner, you can get your steering set up and then you can hold it still and then get the gear. That's not a problem. What we're trying to get away from is doing that with the hand at the same time as your hand's coming down. So pick little straight bits or little bits where your steering is still, so you can then go on and get the gear. It's quite important. Now, just moving on from that, it's just clicked up in my mind about what students tend to do. Students tend to be triggered to get the gear change by their feet. Again, straight but on the approach. I've already assessed it's going to be second, so I'm getting it now. Done. Sorted. Yeah, students tend to be triggered to get the gear change by the feet. In other words, they'll hear that sound and they'll think it needs it straight away, and they'll do that at a cost when they've got steering to do, and that increases risk. It also increases a problem that I constantly try and battle with students, whether that be for license holders or provisional license holders, and it's this grip with this hand. When people trigger a gear change with their feet, they go for the gear change before they're comfortable with this, and that causes tension. So just remember, if you're doing a gear change, feel comfortable to put your hand on it, to then, no, I'm going to go straight on, to put your hand on the gear lever to then be able to do the gear. That's quite important. So let's go and stretch our legs a little bit. I was going to go down that route, but I've just changed my mind. Engine revs gives us a little bit more power, and honestly, we sometimes do need that for acceleration. But here, again, I'm assessing everything before I get here. I'm picking a gear that's suitable before I get here, and now I'm driving around. So on that corner, I was just controlling the car with my gas pressure and the steering. We don't need to be unbalancing the car on purpose, trail braking into things and changing that balance of how the car enters the corner when we're on normal roads like this. We need to get everything sorted in a straight line before and drive around. It's not ultimate pace when you're on public roads, don't forget. Totally different. So yeah, if you are to change gear as you're halfway round a corner, if you are enjoying yourself and pushing a little more, getting up to speed limits on these outer town roads, especially with the road as it is here. There's pretty poor condition. There's certain shiny bits, there's certain probably bits that are in better condition. If you hit a little bit of wet weather, I'm just going to gear down before the corner, drive, balance. If you hit a little bit of maybe slippy road surface with some poor weather on it, just as you're unbalancing the car due to a gear change, you'll be off. You'll be spinning round straight into this jogger. So make sure you're all balanced all the time. No issues with having the car working at 2,500 revs while you're going around a little set of corners like this. Usually if you're above 2,000 revs, you can change to a higher gear, but if you need it for a little bit of control, there's no problems with that. It does use a little bit more fuel, but not a massive amount compared to the higher gear. But if you get that chance to get to the higher gear and still have that control, do so. It's quite important. 30 speed limit up ahead, no issues behind. I'm going to do all my slowing before, and I'm going to choose my gear before I get here, so when I get to 30 I don't keep slowing down, I can just continue, and that again keeps a higher average speed, increases your fuel consumption. Well, makes it better, you don't use as much. Alright, so I mentioned grip. That's quite important. If you do struggle with changing gear and maybe you choose the wrong gears, it's probably because you're doing what I call snatching, last moment. So it does always come down to planning, but just remember, try it. Put your hand down to the gear lever and choose, and then your hands are back on to sort out what we need to do. Do you have any of those problems? Have you recognised anything in your own driving with what I've been talking about? Do you find that people tend to change down in case there's something going on, as opposed to looking to see the scenario and then changing gear to suit? Both methods can work, but what I tend to find is that when people are just changing down just through the gears, they tend to be concentrating on this more than what's happening on the outside. You get gear orientated, and the things or the control that fixes any issue or any hazard that we've got out there is the brake pedal. The brake pedal's the fixed pedal, and these should be used to go. So let's just have a little think of this. Just gonna bring my glasses up a second. It's not quite as bright. I'm backing off early, I'm slowing early, I'm looking for a little straight bit where I can gear down. There. Third gear was just about okay. Is this one alright to the left? Yeah, she's seen me and slowed. And off we go. No problems. Now the engine was quite low down in the rev range there. That's okay, no problems, but it doesn't give you flexibility to go a little bit slower in that particular gear. So I chose third gear there because it was okay for the sharpness of the corner, and what we had was quite a quiet, risk-free environment. It wasn't totally risk-free, like I said, I had to deal with that lady on the left, but risk was quite low. If you've got more stuff going on, having a lower gear, maybe choosing second in that scenario as opposed to third, will then give you more flexibility. It allows you to slow down a little bit more. Your hands and eyes can then stay on the wheel and on the road, as opposed to again taking them off. So it's just a little safer. So if you've got a scenario that is a little bit higher in risk, choose that lower gear as opposed to the higher one. What I did there, I obviously put it into neutral, lights changed. Try and do that at traffic lights also, because it then encourages you to look a little bit more as opposed to just sitting there waiting in gear. Anything that can increase our observation is a good thing. Now, has this Range Rover seen us? Have they heard us? Now they have. Always be ready to stop. Did you notice my engine speed there was reducing? I'm moved out to the right to make sure I was seeing as early as you can, but I didn't want to go too far because their view was out of their window, probably looking down this side. So that use of the horn, it's a forgotten skill. People do get quite triggered when people use it in the correct way. That's wrong. So stages of approach, we know we've got a stop junction up ahead. We know we're going to be choosing first gear because we have to stop. And just with the stop junction as well, I'm going to choose first before the corner so we can get the steering set all the way up to the line, come to a stop, don't have to use the park and brake, off we go. I always get asked that question by people. With a stop junction, do you have to use the handbrake or park and brake? And the answer is no. The reason why instructors do that is to ensure pupils do come to a total stop. But you don't have to use it. As long as you do stop fully and properly, no issues. But just be mindful of the car rolling though. Often you'll get junctions that are lipped, whether it be so you can roll back or roll forward. There, it was simple because all we were going to do was just roll forward the direction I wanted to go. We did have auto hold on anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. I'm delaying my gear just for a little moment. I could get fifth. In fact, I'm going to get fifth. Not so bad. Just wanted to find out what these are doing. And I'm just going to check no one's overtaking. So what should I do with this car now? I am going to build, but I'm just mindful of how these are accelerating, and now I can accelerate. Now I'm going to approach a little quicker, but I am going to grow my space with this one in front because I want to show you can brake more, but I'm still trying to assess the corner and choose it before we get there. No issues about straight line in the roundabout if no one's around. Signal didn't affect anyone. Not going to accelerate too much, so I'm actually going to skip a gear and go into fifth straight from third. So block change on the way up is fine. If we'd have had clearer road, continuation of the dual carriageway, I probably would have continued that acceleration in that third gear and got on with it. So block changing on the way up, totally fine. I'm going to settle my engine down, save a little bit of fuel. We're running at 32.5 miles a gallon. No problems. Is it worthy of an overtake with this white one I'm doing? 59.60 now, so no, obviously not. So try not to be gear orientated. It's not the gears that fix the scenario, it's the brake that fixes the scenario. Make certain that we're slowing down and assessing what the junction, the corner, the bend, the hazard is like on the way in, and we're having a gear that gives, or putting the car into gear that gives us options. A few little issues here. This one's overtaking, so I'm just going to slow. I'm slowing quite a lot because the Jaguar was positioned terribly. My active lane assist causing issues. I'm just going to turn that off. God, it does my head in the way that's always got to be turned off every single time you get in the car. I'm going to turn right at the roundabout. I am going to right signal. It affects these up ahead. They could be thinking of doing the same, so they need to know where I'm going. Again, I'm going to slow it down more here. Quick look down the right hand side, choosing the gear that I think's suitable. Third looks pretty good because this is a flow. Engine revs are still perfect. I've got plenty of flexibility. Whether I go faster or slower, I could still slow down a fair bit in this gear. I could still accelerate. Now, last little thing there, that was quite an important point that we've said about trying to get gears at the correct time was the point that I just did the signal there in the roundabout. It's the same sort of thing. If you're ever struggling getting your mirrors and signals checked as you're on the roundabout, it's because you don't look far enough up round the roundabout and prioritise your steering. Again, prioritise your steering in the same way we should prioritise steering over changing gear. Let's just deal with this. Lower gear, a bit of flexibility. The Vauxhall wishes to come out, but I'm just backing off and seeing what's what. I've really said to them they can move off, yes, and they are doing. Higher risk here, so I'm in that lower gear. I've still got engine revs, so I've got that ability to slow down a bit more in that gear, keeping my hands on the wheel. It's quite an important point. So back to what I was saying. now I'm going to change up. Back to what I was saying about signalling to leave roundabouts. It's the same skill that people struggle with if they can't get gears on corners. It's why they struggle checking the mirrors and signalling to leave roundabouts. It's because they don't look far enough and they don't get the steering set so the hands are free to then check and signal. A little skill that I often get my students doing is when they come around roundabout is wave. So the right hand's in control, reaching up and steering around to the right, and then the left hand's free. And that left hand free allows you to change gear. I'll just give you a little example with this corner. I'm not going to because of the four-wheel drive come the other way. But I might be able to do it the opposite way round with this corner. Obviously when we're changing gear it's left hand, when we're signalling it's generally left hand, but I'm going to show you the same skill here. So if you look really far and get your eyes set up around the corner, the Clio's finished, my right hand's free, and that would allow me to signal or change gear if I was doing that the other way around. I'll show you again here with this right bend. Look far, it's all safe, it's free. And that's the skill that people struggle with. So that stops you steering and gearing, looking far, getting the steering set up, and it allows you to do what you need to do. This corner at the end, I'm going to turn left. Let's have a little look at it. It's a little sharp, but it's quite open, so flexible gears too. Away we go. So again, I don't want to be choosing that gear at that integral time, that important time of checking and making my decision. Now, let's have a little think. Is there anything else that I wanted to cover that I haven't? I don't think so, to be honest. I think it's ran quite smoothly. Please, in the comments, let me know what you think. Is there anything of that you disagree? We're up for discussion on this channel, don't forget. It's never just a, excuse the pun, one-way street with information just being given from me. I learn so much from the comments and my viewers from different perspectives, and it gives you a more balanced opinion of everything, and that's how things should be. So please let me know in the comments if there's anything you disagree with. Let us know also if there's anything that you think that you have particular problems with these gears. Like we said at the beginning, we've still got 20 years possibly of gear use, so we still need to be improving our skills. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. Keep safe, and I'll see you soon.